Hello and welcome to More Bible, the official podcast of Reformation Covenant Church. In Jesus' high priestly prayer, he asked that his Father would sanctify his people in truth, and then affirmed, "Your word is truth." So in seeking to be a means to answering our Lord's Prayer, in each episode, pastors and church officers will take questions from church members and provide answers from the Bible so that our people can grow in a deeper, more faithful understanding and application of God's word to their daily lives. I'm Brad Brewer, the associate pastor at Reformation Covenant Church, and I'm here today with a former pastor of Reformation Covenant Church, Pastor Devin Smith, whom we sent out a couple years ago to plant Trinity Reformed Church over on the west side of town. And he's here to have a follow-up conversation about a topic that we introduced last week with Brad Hangartner on disciplining older children as children phase out of the spanking ages into the tweens or into the teens. Parents can face some challenges about what discipline looks like. And this is a topic that's worth considering for anybody, whether they're children are young, or perhaps you have older children and are trying to figure out things about how to discipline them and continue to train them. We heard from Brad last week, very helpfully, on the importance of loving and establishing discipline in those little years when you're able to win those hearts of your children while they're still young. And I thought it'd be worth asking and talking to Pastor Smith about this topic, just because of the extent to which people might have questions about and the various situations that are out there. So, Devin, I'm going to pose this question to you. How do you think about this? As you've pastored, as you've parented, Devin, you have 4 children.
I do.
And all of them are either teens or out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
How have you thought about in your own life, and how have you counseled parents who have children coming into those years, what discipline looks like, how to think about continuing to raise them and instruct them in the fear and nurture of the Lord?
So, as I think who might be listening to this, I'm sure that the folks at RCC are well aware of the need to be very, very faithful in discipline when children are young. That's going to involve a lot of attention, a lot of careful instruction, some spanking. It's going to involve correction and admonitions, and it's a very, very hard and challenging work.
Mm-hmm.
As children get older, the nature of that work obviously changes. The ways in which parents, this probably goes without saying, but I'm going to say it because it needs to be said. There's a certain age at which spanking becomes not only not beneficial, but counterproductive.
Mm-hmm.
That age is before they become teenagers. That doesn't stop the work of discipline.
Mm-hmm.
We continue to discipline our kids all the way up. By the time our 2 boys have left the house, they're both married. They have children that are coming in the next month or 2. So they're in a different life situation. But they were disciplined all the way up until they left. However, right at the very end, that discipline looks a lot like I have a man living in my house that I'm sitting down with exhortations and talking through consequences, much, much more in the level of natural consequences. This is what's going to happen if this continues.
Mm-hmm.
There were only a handful of times. I mean, my boys were by that time were generally pretty good guys to live with. Not always. We had moments, but a lot of it is just conversational.
Mm-hmm.
and talking through issues.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're up for that conversation,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they're not. It seems like so I was a teacher for 20 years, and one of the principles that I always came back to in terms of teaching is what's called like a teachable moment.
Mm-hmm.
As a teacher, not every moment in a classroom is a teachable moment. You're trying to find those moments in which they're especially attentive, which you have their attention. It's not always, the level of attention isn't always the same. The level of buy-in isn't always the same. And it's the same thing with teenagers in your home, finding teachable moments, finding moments where they have, you have their attention, you have their interest. Sometimes you have to work hard to get that. But that's basically the struggle with teenagers. Now, when we're just not in agreement and there is some kind of a conflict, I think there's a lot, obviously, sibling conflict, that just, it's not being resolved without me stepping in and or my wife stepping in, and say it comes to the point where there needs to be a punishment, there needs to be some kind of a discipline that's levied. Obviously not spanking, but you have to find something that hurts. That's, otherwise it's not discipline. So, what that looked like with all four of the children is quite different.
Yeah.
Grounding, grounding in their generation is something quite different than, they're not out on the town like I was as a teenage, driving around with a bunch of friends in a car. Like that, they have a different thing, way of interacting with their friends, but it can still be a thing. You're not going to this thing, taking away privileges, taking away phone privileges and things like that. We had to do all those kinds of things. So, but it has to hurt. If it doesn't hurt, it's not discipline. Yeah. It's just kind of empty words. So that's what I would say. But obviously at that point, if you're having to, if it's in terms of discipline more than discipleship, you're obviously in a different, you're in a different place. Right. If it's discipline, mostly it's a recovery kind of a situation. Something's gone wrong here. Yes. Mostly your kids should be in a discipleship phase. They're adults. Right. The sins that they're committing would be adult sins. There could be lifelong consequences. So it's mostly this kind of positive, like pursuing Christ together, opening the Word together, discuss, moving forward as Christian disciples in maturity. But of course, that was my experience with my children. I understand that's not always the experience everybody has. Right.
Yeah, that's really helpful. In terms of, I like what you say, natural consequences, especially I was talking with some parents just this morning, actually, about how to address their children. They're about 14 or 15 and in that tween, not their teens, but in between the middle teenage years. And one of the things you see, and we all remember this as teenagers, there's a growing sense of independence and a desire for independence. And that's good and right. That's how God has created us. But sheer command and force doesn't usually work well with someone who wants to be independent. Right?
It's true. Right. It's true. Try to give them, I don't want to be commanding my children what to do every moment of the day anyway. Right. There ought to be, as children grow up and they become adults, there ought to be a kind of relief of the parents. Like, I don't have to parent them on the same level that I used to. So in one regard, that should be a kind of relief. But when things are kind of going south, I think one of the things that we have to realize is that's not going to be very effective necessarily. It might be if it's to completely protect them. Yes. So the way in which I would word how much do you need to control the situation? How much, I would phrase that depending on the age and their maturity level, how much do they need protection from harms that could be catastrophic and lifelong. So if they are, even if they're 17 or 18, if they're hanging out with people that are clearly going to harm them, they're into drugs, they're into I believe that as a parent, I ought to do everything I can to step in to control the situation and help. When they're little, it's about crossing the street, and
Right.
so we give them as much freedom as is safe for them,
Right.
as they can handle, and hopefully that's, as they get older, that's expanding more and more.
Yes.
Now my kids, like, they take trips and they do things. They've traveled out of state, and my oldest has traveled out of country. That's great. I want them to experience that freedom, and even if it's nerve-wracking for a parent to watch their kid going off and doing things, it's really, really important part of their maturing.
Yes.
But if something's going wrong and I just step in and try to control it, you're not going to do this, and well, I mean, you're not necessarily going to have their heart
Right.
at all. So
Right.
That's something to always consider is, do I have their heart? Are they repentant? Not. Those would be the things you're looking at.
Yeah. You were talking, 17, 18. I'm curious, let's say a parent came to you, had a 15-year-old, maybe 16-year-old. And one of the things that they were struggling with was, disrespect. The son or daughter is responding to the mother or father in ways that are disrespectful.
That's terrible.
Well, it's terrible.
Do people do that?
Right? It is terrible, and it's sinful, and it obviously it's something that needs to be corrected.
Yes.
But it's not corrected in the same way that we might correct a 6-year-old.
That's right.
Who's disrespectful.
Yeah.
What sort of things would you say are helpful in that situation? How can you impress upon the child the importance of respect?
Well, I'm talking to the child.
No, you're talking maybe both. I think that's a good point. I mean, one of the things we have to realize here too, people who are listening, is that we're not, when your child is this age, when they're getting to this age, they can have other mentors who can call them to account. They can have other people in their lives, and I think they ought to have other people in their lives who are calling them to account, who are encouraging them to walk in obedience.
Yeah.
So it's never a solo effort, but especially when they're getting into this age, it seems that you have a great wealth of help and pastors and friends who can speak not only to you but to your children.
Yeah.
Anyway, so continue. So maybe both.
So just a bit of background. I was a middle school and high school teacher for 20 years, right? So
we've seen some stuff.
I've seen lots of disrespect, and I want to talk to all those kids about this right now. But the students are all, they're coming from very different places. And while the school rules are the school rules and the consequences are consequences, it is quite a different thing than if, this is a family that I know, they're very faithful, church-going, godly people. And I know how this child was raised, and I know what the expectations are in the home. I'm going to be able to have quite a different conversation with that child than a child who's maybe coming from a broken home, maybe coming from non-believing parents, maybe coming. It depends. What I'm going to appeal to is, in part of how were you raised, and what are the expectations in your home?
Yeah.
So again, but so I would see how much of their heart. If I don't have the child's buy-in, if I don't have their heart, in other words, and I just sitting down, like say it's a pastor, here's a family, they bring their child in, and I'm looking, and this kid is just kind of stone-faced. I will lay out what God's law says, but mostly I would be looking at the parents and be like, look, we got to get this kid's heart. We got to win their heart. Like, it's not going to, law here is not going to win the day with this child. So let's work on gospel, motivations, grace, love. What do you love? What's, so those would be the considerations when a child of that age is
So getting the parent more, what sort of positive counsel would you give the parent on that side?
So the first thing I'm always thinking of, because you're right, teenagers need other adults in their lives, because remember this, the concept of teenagers, not a real thing, right?
Right.
Like I think we've known this for some time. This is an artificial time that we've created where a child has a body and hormones and is capable of sin on an adult level. However, we don't give them the responsibilities of adulthood. We postpone that,
right?
So anyway. So adolescence is a difficult age for these kids. But with these parents, I want to know, and I would want them to be honest. What are all the influences? What's going on here? In terms of it's never just a perfectly neat ecosystem. Like,
yes.
Are they on social media?
Yes.
Is one of the very first things I would want to know.
Yeah.
Disrespect. We don't need to look outside the human heart to understand where disrespect comes from, but often the language and the ideas, and the motivation and the influence, it is coming from outside. Yes. It's coming from Instagram. It's coming from TikTok. It's coming from YouTube.
Yes.
The parents would not invite those people to come in and sit in their house,
right, and
talk for hours to their kids. They
right.
They wouldn't allow it. They would.
Right.
They would be repulsed by it, and yet that's exactly what is happening. Some of it's rebellious. Some of it's just foolishness. It's just utter foolishness. These kids listening to just kind of nonsense for hours and hours, and so that's shaping of their world. So that would be what I want, and I would wonder how the parents talk with their kids. What's the culture like in the home?
Like, is it contentious? Are they?
Yeah. Is this always kind of on a razor's edge here? Is this always something? Because we shouldn't be surprised if kids aren't thriving. If there's always tension, I guess what I mean is anger just this continual medium of exchange between these people? Like this isn't going to end well. So one of the ideas, Jim Wilson talks about saturation love. That goes for teenagers just as much as it goes for kids. If kids are growing up and they're not just surrounded on all sides by love and grace and care and smiles. If they're getting a frown for every smile, it's not going to go well.
Yes,
because it's not what humans thrive on. We don't. None of us want to be a part of that. And I would even look at the rituals, the habits of the family. What do you celebrate? Are you eating together? Is it pleasant? Is it joyful? So taking all that information, you can get a much better picture. If all of that is in place, I would honestly probably say, I don't think this will probably last. Kids, even in the middle years, every sophomore is a sophomore for a reason. Every sophomore is a wise fool. 10th grade is a point in time where it just, John Calvin was a terror at 10th grade. They all are. Yeah. It's going to happen, but they level out, they come back, right? Yeah. Mostly kids, in that kind of an environment, they do really well. Yes. And you have your moments. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And I appreciate what you're saying about the context of the home, and the history of the home, the history of the aura of the home. What kind of culture have you been building, parents? And you can sort of demand respect and not really build an ecosystem where respect is cultivated well. Yeah. And I think that's something that people overlook. One thing I would encourage parents, if they might be going through this, building off the point that Pastor Smith said about just this is not uncommon that children may experience a time of sophomoric behavior. I tell parents this: discipline is not done out of anxiety. Like, we don't discipline because we're out of fear of what's going to happen. It's like panic selling. We panic sell our stocks when prices drop or something. Panic selling is the worst thing you can do. You just plod on, keep faithful. With parents who might be doing this, it's a really bad thing to do is to have that moment of disrespect or disobedience in an older child, and then to extrapolate 10 years down the line based off of this moment. Now, obviously, if it's left unaddressed for a long time, then yes, it'll foster into some bad behavior. But we don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Absolutely. And again, that extrapolation, we could in theory extrapolate from any sin of ours.
Right.
We don't have to look at our kids. Any
Right.
sin of ours. If this continued in 10 years, I'm doomed.
Yes.
I've
Right.
left my family, I've left my church, I've
Right.
left everything. But that's not the course of our lives. So
Right.
you need a complete picture. And that's why the whole ecosystem, the
Yes.
whole covenant, their whole relationship, all these relationships, their friendships, from that, I think you can make some kinds of extrapolations.
Yeah.
You're generally, I think it's generally true. The people that you choose, Psalm 1 applies to teenagers as much as it applies to anybody.
Yes.
And if you're walking with, the wicked and ungodly people, you're going to be like them.
Yes.
And so if they are receiving that counsel and they're kind of stiff-arming wise and godly counsel, then I think there is reason to be concerned.
Yes.
But that's often not. Sometimes they're just really coming up to boundaries and like, what happens if I poke them?
Yes.
And that didn't go well. Like they're stretching their covenant legs.
Yes.
It's a different thing.
Yes. Yeah. Going off of that and sort of now flipping the question a little bit, I'm curious for parents who don't have teens yet, but have more that tweens age, maybe 10 to 12, that sort of age, where you're beginning to phase out of some of the more straightforward means of discipline, but you still can utilize it. You can still spank if necessary. How would you talk to these parents who might have that children that age? Spanking is technically still on the table, but maybe they're trying to utilize other things. How to think about spanking, how to think about other discipline in those middle years.
Yeah, it might be different based on cultures and families. We were long past spanking at that point, but we were not past discipline in those years. So
you get a pair of stocks.
What am I allowed to say on it? So yeah, I think that one of the things that helped us was being a part of church communities where there were people just ahead of us and people behind us, and kind of seeing what was coming, seeing what's going on. We had some good literature that we could rely on, but what we knew. So this is the thing. I was a teacher again during this time, taught a lot of middle schoolers and high schoolers, so I kind of know it's coming. And the things that we wanted to be really, I think, careful about were their friend groups and their influences. And that doesn't mean we're not like a Christian music only family, or like we don't watch secular movies or anything like that. But that we're watching these things with the kids. We're trying to build a sense of an aesthetic sense of what they like, what they enjoy, and pushing them towards friends that are going to build them.
Yes,
and also especially with my boys towards other men. Coaches have been a really important influence on their lives. Other men in the church,
yes,
as much as possible for them to be an influence as well. Because, like I said, a 14-year-old boy, he's got facial hair, and he's really capable of a lot of destruction. So you got to kind of like, even regardless of what the frontal lobe kind of science is on this, like he's capable of adult sins, and you really. If you're still treating him like a child, I think you're really tempting him to rebel.
Yes.
And they need responsibility.
Yeah.
They need to be spoken to differently. So, yeah, I'm not sure that's all coherent, but those were some of the things what I was thinking in those tween years. I don't, as much as possible, we don't want to think of them in terms of adolescence. So the goal is, and this is important, the goal is not to postpone childhood. The goal is to move them to adulthood, give them responsibility, give them a seat at the table. I think that my kids would feel that they, by the time they're in high school and that we're adults sitting around the table, they can talk to us about whatever they want. Yeah. And then ultimately to launch them, that's the intention. So as far as discipline, again, I think most parents will be helped in the tween years by just simply postponing smartphones.
Yes.
And iPads.
Yes.
There's tons of sneaky screens.
Yeah.
Now, sneaky screens is a very evil and pernicious thing in our culture of kids on their Xbox, accessing internet, watching YouTube on some Game Boy or something like that. Like they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And just controlling those influences and again, it's not that they have no media, but rather that we're going to pursue media that's generally
yes. Yeah, I think there's a book out by Jonathan Haidt wrote a book called The Anxious Generation.
Yes.
I think that's just come out, and that's been getting a lot of some pretty strong criticism from a lot of circles. But I think his main contention is handing screens to your children is like one of the worst things you can possibly do.
Yes,
and
we did it too early. I love my kids. I think we would agree. Amy and I would both agree that we gave them smartphones a little bit too early. We had to. We didn't take the smartphones away, but we had highly restrict. So they had smartphones, but we dumbed them down continually. Yeah. And I realized that probably that amount of effort wasn't necessary.
Yeah. You could have just
gotten them dumb phones if they just need to communicate with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I always encourage parents, and I'm doing this as a parent of young children. The technology you had as a teen is not anywhere like the technology that's available today. I mean, I think what is available now with all manner of apps, and now the capabilities that are coming out with AI and related features, that ought to be very concerning for minds who are being shaped and hearts that are being directed. We want our kids attuned and directed to the world that God has made. And I think so much, even if it's not pornography, which every parent needs to be thinking of and trying to address with their children, but just the way we access, like for instance, AI friends are becoming a thing. People are jettisoning real friends for AI. Yeah. Because they're being fed what the algorithm thinks that they want to hear.
Yeah. And so my children have all grown up without AI. I think probably, so my boys are just finishing up college and they have seen people write a lot of papers with ChatGPT, that kind of thing. But having an AI companion, it's not something that's a part of their experience. So, my boys are about to have babies, but those babies are going to grow up in a world where lots of people have all sorts of AI relationships.
Yes.
And if they just simply say, well, that's dumb, every parent needs to realize how quickly things are changing and do the work to understand there's a set of temptations that this generation faces that you didn't face.
Yes. Yes.
And it doesn't matter if you simply say, I was fine. There's going to be lots of human casualties because of that.
Yes.
People who are just handed over to, frankly, be friended and parented and romantically involved with AIs. It's going to be shocking.
Yeah.
The stories that are going to come to us are going to be very tragic,
Yes.
and numerous and very sad.
Yes. Yeah. Well, this has been very helpful, Devin. It's been provocative for me as a parent of young kids, and hopefully it's been encouraging for people in our congregation with older children and who might be going through various things. If you were to give a word of encouragement to parents who may have, in all honesty, just failed to discipline maybe either at all, or failed to discipline meaningfully and well in the younger years, and then are paying for it, or parents who thought they tried really hard to be consistent and good, but their child just seems to be obstinate and strong-willed. What sort of encouragement would you give them beyond just strategy and ways of thinking?
Yeah. So I think the word that I would say to them is to begin to think of them as another adult in their life, hopefully still in the church, but sometimes not. Sometimes kids either wander out of the church or they go to another church.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a situation where your influence over their life is different than what it was.
Yeah.
And I think what you need to realize is, of course, that you cannot impose that influence anymore. The influence is just what it is.
Yes.
So what you want to do is be the kind of person that when they do bump up against those natural consequences, they would come to you seeking perhaps some guidance and friendship. So I think just realizing that the relationship has changed, and there are very many kids who wander off for a season. It happens, and then come to realize, after their rumspringa, it's not it's not as great as they told us it would be, and they come back to the church.
Yes.
I think that's happened and so be open to receiving them back and loving them through that time. So
yes,
I don't know. That's what I would say. The gospel is very powerful.
Yes.
And you meet those kids where they're at.
Yes.
So
yeah, you're that reminded me of what Paul says we were like. We were once foolish, disobedient, led astray, slaves of various passions and pleasures, but God in his mercy. And so we have a great example for us in our Father and what he's done with wayward people.
Yeah.
And we as parents get to emulate that.
Yeah.
So that's all the time we've got for today. We hope the discussion has been helpful. If you have more questions about this or any other topic, please text me or any of the other pastors here at Reformation Covenant Church, or you can email us at morebible@reformationcovenant.org. Again, that's morebible@reformationcovenant.org. Until next time, remember to make best use of the time that God has given you for his glory and the life of the world. Goodbye.